live. Let's take it away. We've got Michelle Berman.
Yay.
Berman Media, Sip on Social. We're back. This is the first one in 2021. And what better way to kick it off than with the ninja, shall we say, the savant, the expert, the guru. What do we want to call her, Tristan?
Ninja assassin.
Ooh,
oh boy.
of Instagram. Most of you already know her. In fact, I need to go on to the platform while we're talking and tag some people. Michelle has been probably, I haven't actually figured this out, but I think you are our #1 contributor, but not just #1 contributor. Like, you're a freaking awesome contributor. You share so much value to Drunk on Social, specifically about Instagram. And so we wanted to come on here today and, like kind of pull some of that out of that brain of yours and help our listeners, our audience, elevate their brand on Instagram. So first of all, why don't you introduce yourself more so than what I just did?
Well, thank you guys. You guys are both awesome. I appreciate it. And I love Drunk on Social for all of you guys. I think it's such a great group. There's so many meeting of the minds happening in there almost every single day that it's just really cool to be a part of. And yeah, so my name is Michelle Berman. For those of you guys who don't know me, I own Berman Media PD, and I'm also the creator of the course called the Instagram Power Method. This course I created in July of 2019, and it was insanely successful in 2020, and we plan on having an even better year this year in 2021. But really, I focus solely on being able to add as much value to realtors and loan officers as possible. And my goal in doing so is teaching them to really lean into their authentic selves. I think that that's kind of the word of the year. If I can foreshadow what 2021 is really going to look like for us on this platform. And I really help people understand that you don't have to be everywhere all the time. You just have to get really good and dialed in on what you're doing on one platform and then leverage it on wherever else you want to be.
How do you do that?
So the cool thing about Instagram, I will tell all of you guys, is that it's really 6 platforms in one, right? So we have the feed, we have lives, we have stories, we have reels, we have IGTV, which is your YouTube, reels being your TikTok version, stories being your Snapchat. It's really all of the platforms in one. So I was just talking to a client of ours earlier today who wanted to really ramp up his YouTube channel. And he's like, well, I record all these 10-minute videos all the time. I get like 9,000 views on my YouTube videos. And I'm like, perfect. Do it as an Instagram story, like live, go live on Instagram, download and save it, repurpose it as an IGTV video, share it to your stories and then hyperlink it to YouTube. And then you're sending the same message to every platform possible. And video on Instagram right now is just like, everybody knows this, but video on Instagram is literally like the gold mine of life. The more active you are on video, whether it's on stories, Instagram lives, reels, etc., Instagram's just going to blow you up. So, even Clubhouse, right, which is the big thing right now, it links directly to your Instagram. It doesn't link to Facebook. It doesn't link to TikTok. It does go to Twitter, right? But I'm sorry, I haven't used Twitter since I graduated from college in 2012.
What's Twitter?
Twitter lovers, but
Donald Trump, 2 words.
Yeah, right. I mean, but not me. So there's a method to the madness. I can't stress out enough that if you can really leverage Instagram correctly, you don't need to spend time making new content for every single platform every single day, because I don't know anybody that has the time to do that.
So two questions there. One, the little ninja strategy that you just shared, I have a feeling someone's going to ask you to repeat that. Could you turn that into a post? And if you already have, could you repurpose and repost it? Because I think that's important, and I don't want to just beat a dead horse and go down this path. So I want to ask another question. So that's #1. That's kind of a statement, I guess, and a request.
I'll repost it for everyone.
Thank you. #2, you mentioned that it's like multiple platforms in one. I forgot how many you said. 6. If somebody came to you and said, which one's the most important? Like, which one should I'm not doing anything. So which one should I start with? Which one would you say?
On Instagram?
On Instagram.
I would say, so kind of one hand in hand, right? Every social media developer, creator, influencer, I don't care what you call yourself. If you're not educating your people to be posting on stories constantly all day, every day, you're doing it wrong. So I would say stories is #1, first and foremost. If you can get to your feed and you post 2 or 3 times a week, that's fine. I personally, and Jeff, I know you're the same, and Tristan, I'm not sure how active you are in the feed, but I know you're really active in stories too. But I only post on my feed usually 4 or 5 times a week. So I almost never post on the weekends. That's based off my analytics. My content doesn't do as well at that time. But if you can't do that many on the feed per week, it's okay. No one's going to die, right? But in stories, like, you have got to be constantly showing up there. Even when I was on vacation off the grid, anytime I was in town and I actually had some kind of cell reception, I would post pictures that I had taken earlier in the day, just so that I was active in that space.
Why? Why do you think this is? And I'm glad you say it, because I vomit on my story all the time. In fact, when I'm on family vacations, I post more to my story because I have more time. Like, I go throughout the day, like a work day, I hardly ever post. I get it tonight and I'm like, crap, I haven't posted my stories, and I just start doing stuff. Right. So two questions. Why is that so important? Because, I mean, frankly, your story is sharing your life story. Like, you're really not sharing a lot of business. I do, everybody does, but for the most part, I'm sharing winter. I mean, you know this, right? Yeah. I'm sharing what I'm doing with my life. Why is that so important for our business and our brand? And yeah, let's just go with that question first.
I freaking love that question. And the answer is the raw authenticity of who is this person that I'm potentially giving my money to, period. Like, mic drop, I'm walking out of the room. Like, I have to know who you are. I have to feel like I have some kind of either emotional connection to you or relationship with you outside of work. And Jeff, I mean, you and I talk all the time. You're privy to some information that very few humans on this earth know. And that's really exciting. But that's because I have an emotional relationship with you on top of our work relationship, right? I see pictures of winter all the time. I know, I see pictures of Sarah or your kids. And when we talk about not work related stuff. So when we do talk about work, the relationship that we have is a lot stronger. And so that's the power behind stories is, I have clients that will call me. I've never met them ever in my life. They've maybe taken a class, but I've never spoken to them. But they'll say something like, oh my gosh, Michelle, how was your honeymoon? Or I'm so sorry your honeymoon got canceled because we were supposed to be in Australia for 2 weeks. Or, they'll say things like, your wedding pictures were amazing. It was so, like, where were you? Stuff like that. And it's like, people feel like they have some kind of relationship with me already. So when it comes to them buying the Instagram Power Method or them wanting to register for a class or something, I don't have to sell them at all. Like, it's the easiest sale on the phone of all time. Like, no cold calling feeling or weird car salesman-ness at all. Zero.
So the stuff the thing that I know that I'm privy to that no one else is that Michelle is a robot. She's actually not human.
No.
So just so you know. Hey, by the way, before we go any further, Tristan, do you realize in your backdrop you have the Wichita State Shocker mascot over there? That's so random, dude.
I know, bro. I was hoping somebody would catch it.
Sorry. Okay. So Tristan, join us, Tristan, for this conversation.
Dude, I'm having some issues with my speakers. So I'm trying to reboot the speaker system here.
All right. So I will continue on. All right. So back to the stories. So the simple answer is that you should just be vomiting your life because people are paying attention. It allows them to get to know you. And you should be doing this every single day, probably multiple times a day, correct?
Yeah, I tell anyone I talk to 5 to 7 stories per day, if you can do it. And again, it doesn't have to be one long 5 to 7 story video in one sitting. It can be 5 little individual things. It can be, the picture of your coffee in the morning. It could be your picture of your computer and your work setup or your view for the day, whatever. It just has to be consistent.
I love that. And then I think something to point out, and I kind of want to gain your opinion on this, because when I sometimes have a feed post or when I do an IGTV video or I do a Reels, I also repurpose that to my story. So you can really cover the platform in multiple directions, which I think is kind of what you mentioned in the strategy. Yeah. But do you encourage everyone to do that every time, or do you just sporadically do what's kind of a strategy on that?
I mean, for me, like, depending on what I post on my feed that day, I may share it to my stories, especially everyone, like, open your ears here, especially if it's really shareable content. So like the post I post in Drunk on Social in the Twitter template that I made in Canva, right? Everyone's like, oh, how did you make that? I don't use Twitter, guys. It's a template in Canva. That's it. But that kind of content, I get an unbelievable amount of shares and saves on that stuff. So those things I share into my stories because that just encourages more people to then either see the post or share it. But like a picture of Dave and I over Christmas when I was saying Merry Christmas, like that doesn't need to go into my stories necessarily. That was posted on my feed. It doesn't really matter. But I focus on anything that goes on my stories. I want it to be shareable, or I want it to be something that somebody would want to then be like, hey, have you seen Michelle's stories? Or hey, did you see what Michelle posted in there? And have it just continue to kind of get out.
What about, since we're on the stories topic, and I think this is important because I think it is an overlooked component. I think people just go to Instagram, you automatically assume feed because the feed is what shows up, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with stories, it's a little bit, it's up here, right? It's up top and you're just not paying attention to it as much. Maybe not everybody's paying attention to stories, but what about, because you always hear the Instagram gurus or the experts talking about how you need to be using the tools. And by tools, I mean, like adding GIFs and adding questions and polls, and you need to be hashtagging. And there's certain ninja techniques to how you can get 10 hashtags on your story. And you need to be tagging people, and you need to do the swipe up if you can. What's your take on all of that nonsense?
I use secret hashtags every single time I post, no matter what. So you can actually use way more than 10 if you want to.
Secret hashtags.
So there's a couple ways to do that. One, you can do one in the actual hashtag symbol in that section, or you can do them in the text section and actually just write them all out. I do anywhere from 10 to 15 depending on what the post is. And I vary them. So I'm not always using the same ones, especially like if you guys have ever seen that sometimes you'll use the same sets of hashtags over and over again on your feed content, and then all of a sudden they just start not working. It's the same thing in stories. So, like if I posted the icon of us going live today, right, in my stories, and I used a lot of stuff related to, the mortgage industry, the real estate industry, mortgage marketing, realtor marketing, realtor podcast, that type of stuff that was going to attract people who'd be interested in a Facebook Live or something similar to that. So the key being, and this can kind of lead into, I think, the next part of our conversation, but who is the person you're actually trying to talk to? That's what you have to pay attention to, because I think just so many people throw whatever hashtags they can at their posts or in their stories and hope that something is going to stick and make their content do better. But that's not going to work. Right? What will really help you is by being strategic and really understanding who you're actually talking to and being able to give and put your content in front of those people in order to see the results or to see the viewership, if you will, of your stories that you're actually after in the first place.
Love it. I love it. So you mentioned moving on. This kind of leads to the next topic. Yeah. Why don't you lead us there?
Yeah. So I think the one thing that I feel like is so important in 2021. And ironically, I'm doing a Facebook Live myself on Wednesday where we're going to talk about like my 2021 forecast essentially for Instagram and what people can really expect. And one of the things that I want to talk about, one is a mistake that I think a lot of people need to rip the Band-Aid off moving into the new year. And the second thing is the big thing that people need to lean into in 2021. So we'll start with the mistake if you guys are cool with that. And what the biggest mistake is that we live on this perfectionism wheel, right? We think we have to have the perfect feed. We think we have to have the perfect piece of content to go out. We think our content has to be perfectly branded. If our colors don't match, somebody's going to say something. Nobody's going to like it. Oh my gosh, I messed up my grid. I forgot to post this one day, and now I have two tiles that look the same next to each other. I deal with this literally every single day from our students. And when that happens, they end up just stopping, right? Or they just don't even start in the first place because they feel paralyzed by, I don't love my branding, or I don't have a logo, or I don't have a website yet. I shouldn't be posting on Instagram yet. Like all of this, I don't know if I can say this, but kind of bullshit that we tell ourselves is like to why we can't be posting or why we shouldn't be using Instagram. And that's a huge mistake. I can tell all of you guys that when I first started the Instagram Power Method, I didn't have a website. I had nothing to sell on my course with the exception of Instagram. Zero. I didn't have a website. I didn't even have a Calendly link. I didn't have anything. All I had was a warm Instagram audience that I sold it to. That was it. So realtors, lenders, it doesn't matter which category you fall into. You do not need a perfect website to be able to generate leads off of this platform, period.
Love it.
Do you want to add?
The only thing I would say is the way I usually say this to people is stop overthinking.
Yeah.
Stop overthinking. If you have a post idea and then you start to think why you shouldn't post it, just eliminate that thought and just post it. There's nothing wrong. You'll get better. Maybe it'll suck here and there, but it's better. Like, listen, something beats nothing every single day of the week.
100%. Absolutely 100%. And I think the biggest thing for me, as far as the trend, if you will, that I want people to really focus on moving into the new year, is that might sound weird. You have to engage more than you post. And I think that that's something that I want people to focus on in the new year is don't expect. And I deal with this so much that it's really frustrating, to be honest with you. But you have so many people who are like, my feed's beautiful. Look at all my content. My captions are so good, but they don't do comments. They don't even respond to DMs. They don't send DMs out, right? They don't create or initiate conversations themselves. And then they call me and they're like, Instagram's not working for me. I need to move on. And
can we dive deeper into that? Because
yeah,
I agree with you on that. A lot of salespeople, they just kind of post and then they do stories, but they never take the time to engage deeply, right? And connect with other people. So do you have a process for that? So people can be like, okay, this is where I start and this is how I do it.
Yeah. So I have a system in my course called the messenger machine. Everybody might call it something different. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but essentially it's a framework for how you create messaging and how you decide who's worthy of initiating conversation with. But I think the biggest thing with the 2021 trend, if I can like conceptualize it into like a sentence or a statement, would be scaling is not about having more followers or having more likes. It's actually about scaling, like in one sense, down and focusing more on the one-on-one relationships that can leverage more bigger relationships. So spending time developing the one-on-one conversations in your DMs, because you don't know who that person knows. You don't know who that person is friends with. You don't know who, that husband has a guy at work that also needs a new house or blah, 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 right? You have no idea how big that person's network is. So I heard something yesterday that really resonated with me too, was that the bigger you get, the harder it is sometimes to make sure you're actively responding to DMs when you get them, but the more important it is to do it, right? I don't care how big I am on Instagram. I don't care if I have 50,000 followers. If I get a DM about something and somebody's like, oh my God, what kind of dog do you have? I'm responding to it. Yeah. Because that's so important.
That's also first world problems. I want to preface that by saying that most of our listeners, and even honestly myself included, who I have a decent amount of followers, I don't have that problem. Most of us are never going to have that problem of like being viral, being famous and having so many DMs we can't keep up with them. That's so, in other words, the reason I say that is because you have no damn excuse. If you're on Instagram, and I don't care if you have 200 followers or 5,000 followers, and I have 17,000 followers, and I still don't get so many DMs I can't keep up. So that's a BS excuse. If you want to play this game, play it right and engage your people.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of what Tristan said, of like diving a little bit deeper into it, the way I look at it is, who are my cold leads? Who are my warm leads? Who are my hot leads? Who are the people that I can move through my messenger machine? And I can tell you that 99.9% of my initial conversations with people that end up turning into either a client or a course student has nothing to do with Instagram marketing or anything to do with our course. Usually it has something to do with their dog, the coffee. Oh my God, what coffee shop are you at? Or they'll respond to me about something totally random, like absolutely random. Like I posted a fireplace picture because my husband finally got our fireplace in our new house to work, right? I posted a picture of that, didn't say new fireplace working now, but I got like 10 DMs about people who are like, oh my God, it's a perfect time of year for that. Right. And it's like dumb shit like that actually turns into conversations that lead to whatever could come out of that, hopefully being either someone that's paying us or not, right? But that's the goal. Yeah. So to add to that, Tristan, one more time, to your statement, right? Identify who those people are, the people that are giving you the time of day, respond to them, and then follow the framework of the messenger machine to move them into someone who's in your, in your Calendly link for a sales call, whatever it is. Your system is your system, but I use Calendly. Everybody's a little bit different.
I agree. So I have another question that I want to talk about. And let me just also say to the audience and anybody watching this later on, we're pretty intentional about keeping these well under an hour, 30 to 45 minutes tops. So we're going to be back. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to do this over a series with different people. Michelle will definitely be back. She'll probably be a regular, probably every single month, to be honest with you. Because those who give also receive. That's the way it works. But I want to ask you this. So many people, like, Instagram is really hard to grow. And I've been hearing more and more, it's like YouTube. It's really hard to get subscribers on YouTube. It's also really hard to get followers on Instagram. And it's not necessarily about the virality of your account. It's not necessarily about how many followers you have. It's about the intentional, the organic followers, right? And so we've talked many times about this, about how you can be very intentional to gain organic followers, but also gain the followers that you want, because you want to get into that circle to be able to sell whatever it is you're selling.
Yep.
Talk about that.
Yeah, I am a huge, huge proponent of really understanding who your ideal client is and knowing where they live. And when I say live, I don't mean physically, like geographically, where are they located, because that does matter. But where do they live on Instagram? So if anyone, Jeff, you and I talked about it on the Labco podcast when we did it, but what's your third place, or what is your ideal client's third place where you could generate business from, and being able to really lean into that. So how to generate a really organic, a really targeted, a really niche down following that can actually bring you business is by knowing where they live on the platform, right? So I'll use an example of a random student of ours who, when she first went through this homework assignment in our program, she was like, Michelle, like, my ideal client is referrals. Like, I don't even do any marketing. I don't do any, like, at all. It's all from my database, 100%. My email list, that's it. And I was like, okay, but where are they coming from, right? So we had to dive into that. And what we discovered was that 14 of her last 18 transactions came from her love of Harleys, because her and her husband ride. They're in a whole bunch of Facebook groups for them. They do meetups. They do like the thing where you just drive for 60 miles and have lunch and then come back, whatever. They do all that stuff. And then the problem, what I then noticed, was by going to her platform, she didn't have a single picture of her riding a Harley anywhere on her page at all. And I was like, oh my God, Allison, like, we have to get pictures of your Harley on there.
What industry? Real estate?
She's a realtor. Yeah. Okay. Here in Arizona, actually. But it was insane to me. And that is the key, right? If you want to grow really quickly, and by quickly, to give everyone a rough estimate, I grow about anywhere from 175 to 250 followers a month on average, anywhere between that. Anything more than that, I've either been on a big podcast or something, some big event or something happened, right? But my general organic growth is anywhere from 175 to 250 per month. So if you're going to sit there and say, oh, I want to gain 100 or 1,000 followers in 1 month, no, it's not going to happen. Unless you're super famous, like, it's just not real life. So that's something that people need to pay attention to too. But my point being is, to generate a really organic following, you have to lean into your third place and figure out where the leads you get are actually coming from. And that's where you need to live, right? So if you're Allison, the lady I was just talking about, she's engaging in all kinds of Harley Davidson stuff all over Instagram, all over it. Fan groups, fan pages, like local businesses in our area that sell Harleys. Phoenix is a huge place for motorcycles and for riding. We have like a big motorcycle show in downtown Chandler every year. Like, it's a big deal, right? So there's a lot of local businesses that support that stuff, that sell motorcycle parts, you name it. So her job is to live in that land on Instagram, and then also to have the feed or the content on her feed and her stories and on her feed itself to back that up, and then tagging other local motorcycle businesses. And when Allison actually did that very first time she did it in her story, she tagged a motorcycle shop that she got one of the parts, whatever, for one of her rides from. And they ended up saying, hey, we're doing a big event at the end of the year. It's kind of like a BNI, right? We have somebody in every industry. They chose her as the realtor to come be part of it.
That's
just because she tagged them on Instagram, and then she had the picture and her stories of her riding a Harley. Like, that's it.
Yeah. What about, I love that, but what about the other piece of it? So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, and I'm intentionally playing devil's advocate for the audience here. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, I get it. Like I'm going to post more about my hobbies and the things that I'm doing. I'm going to intentionally tag, which means I'm going to get seen. So people are going to know that I like to ride Harleys, but how the hell are they going to become clients?
Yeah, so that's where we move into the messenger machine concept, right? That's where the stories really come into play. They come to our Instagrams, they build that emotional connection. Many of you guys have heard me say it, post it, whatever in this group, talking about the like, know, and trust triangle, right? So it's sales psychology, sales 101. Anybody who's been in any sales classes or read any sales books, they know what that means. But essentially, it's if somebody likes you and somebody feels like they know you, they're more likely to trust you. So if they like you and they know you through your motorcycle and your Harley stuff, they see your value series content that I preach about constantly. They see your other business driven content, not necessarily asking for business, then they're more likely to want to send you that initial DM, even if it's just about a picture of your motorcycle. And then we move into the messenger machine where it's our job now to be actively responding and engaging and letting the conversation flow into how do I get this person out for coffee if I'm a realtor trying to land a listing? You know, how do I get this person on the phone if they're a buyer trying to potentially sell their house? You know, you name it. And that really hopefully answers that.
No, I mean, it does. I didn't mean no. I mean, I love it. So I think, and I'm trying to articulate this into a different way to say it, which is you post content. This really applies to all social platforms.
Yep.
You post content to attract more eyeballs because they're interested in you as a human being, or they have similar interests. Then once they're in your spider web, if you will, like now that's the algorithm. We'll call that the spider web is the algorithm. Now, when you're posting your quote unquote boring content about real estate and the market and blah, 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 it shows up on their feed more often, which then makes them know what you do. And then when they have the need, they're going to think of you first. Does that explain that correctly?
I couldn't have said it better.
All right, good. All right. Well, I just invented something then. So go ahead. Somebody coin that, put it in quotations and put my name underneath it.
I'm doing that right now. Hold on.
I know. I love it. Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. And the emotional connection that you can create between two people who have never shook hands or never met in real life is so unbelievably powerful. You know, and I told another client I talked to this morning, I was like, you know, if you go to an inspection and it's really bad, get in your car on the way home and just talk about it. Like, be as authentic as you can about it, because guess what? Somebody's going to be like, oh my gosh, this person's actually real. Not every real estate transaction is about making a shit ton of money. Like, it's not, right? Tristan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, that is not real life. I mean, my assistant, Sarah, many people probably have heard of her or seen me post about her or whatever. Her husband's a realtor, and he has $1 million listing where the appraisal came in way under, and the whole deal blew up like literally a week away from closing. And it was his biggest close, or would have been his biggest closing ever. Like, how shitty does that feel? But at the end of the day, there's a reason why it happened. And the best thing that he could do is get on social media and be raw and be authentic about it. And other clients or other potential people who might want to buy or sell are going to want to use Mike down the road because of the fact that he is willing to work through it.
That's true. Very true. A lot of the situations that we go through in business in general, we can go back and just going back to that very first phrase that you use, that rawness, the authenticity that we need to just show through social media is very key. So we can allow people to connect with us.
Yeah, because I think so many people feel like when you go to Instagram, and Instagram in general, I think social media in general has gotten that really bad, you know, taste, or put that really bad taste in people's mouth of it's always so perfect. And it's always like, oh my gosh, I want their life. But like, no, like it's not always that way. So I think that's a big goal for me as a business owner and as a wife and as a friend in 2021 to say life is not perfect. Shit happens. And I'm going to create a lot of relationships with people going through struggle and being open and raw about that struggle, because it's not always great. You know, the grass a lot of times is not always greener on the other side.
100%. 100%.
Very
Tristan, if you don't have any other questions, I want to kind of shift this and start to wrap it up. But I want to ask you this, Michelle, two questions. Number one, and I don't want to go down too far down this rabbit hole, but obviously everybody's like getting on Clubhouse now, and I know you're new to it, like most of us are. Like if you've been in it over a week, you're like a gray hair now. That's how it feels anyway. So I do believe, so those of you that are watching, I know a lot of you are probably already in Clubhouse. We are going to schedule something together, and we're going to go deep on this. And as you know how Clubhouse works, you can come up on stage, you can ask a question. It's really freaking awesome. So we're going to schedule something with Michelle probably later this week. So just keep an eye out. Just follow us. Most of you probably already do, but if you do, you'll automatically get an alert with which if any of us schedule that. So pay attention there. We'll also post it into Drunk on Social. And then my last question is, let's give the audience like one more ninja strategy. So if there's like, you said you need to be going into your story. To summarize what we've talked about, like stories is most important. And we talked deep about that. So go back and listen to the first half of this thing. I keep hitting my damn microphone. And then you talked about kind of how to get intentional with getting a following. Give our audience one more just really key component to Instagram if they're wanting to, kind of really grow their presence there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna end it with the scaling down to scale up. That's the biggest thing. Like I can't say that enough. I feel like that's the theme, the anthem that I'm living by in this 2021 and just in general right now. Because the key to success on Instagram really is actually scaling down to the individual user, right? So not focusing on how can I grow my following? How can I get more likes? How can I do this? How can I do that? But instead talking and asking yourself, how can I serve my ideal client today, right? Every day, can I sit down and create a piece of content that's going to actually serve my ideal client? And that does not mean posting pictures of the 5 steps to the home buying process, because I don't need to see that again ever, right? That does not mean what is an appraisal, right? Doing like the dictionary definitions of real estate.
10 tips to getting your home ready to sell in the spring.
Stop posting it. Stop it. And I can't say that enough because I do not care. As a user and as someone who sees that every single day, I do not care. What I care about is—
wait a minute. Before you say it, Tristan has a favorite post. He every year likes to post, turn back the clock. He likes to remind his audience that they need to turn back the clock whenever it's daylight savings.
Oh my God.
You're such a liar. I love that.
Sorry. That's another one that everybody posts. Sorry. Carry on.
No, yeah, it comes down to talking to your ideal client. I've been saying it for the last 5 years. It's my bread and butter. It's the focus of what we do. And when we work with students, we tell them before you ever put a piece of content out, you better know who your ideal client is and exactly what they need to hear in order to make the decision to give you their money to buy a home, right? Or to sell a home or to get a loan. And so the power behind that of how we do that is once you know your ideal client, the key word is tell a story, right? I've posted that in Drunk on Social a million times, but tell a story and talk about an experience that you've gone through with clients, with a buyer, with somebody who's trying to buy a home or trying to get approved for a loan. Don't talk to me about vocabulary terms. Don't talk to me about the 5 steps to winterize my home this year. It's just so irrelevant and so unnecessary because that part of the platform, or I shouldn't say that, the noise on the platform is so oversaturated with that stuff that people are constantly like, how do I stand out? How do I stand out? That's the answer.
Can you drop a microphone right now?
Michelle, just carry a little mic with you everywhere you go.
I need a little mini one like on my keychain so I can just go boop.
You know what, Tristan? She needs to come. She needs to come to Closing Table. We'll invite you to Closing Table where we actually do a mic drop. That's how you end the 3-day mastermind, and the winner wins like a really cool prize. So, anyways,
it's a good idea. Good idea.
Yeah,
I know.
Good stuff. I guess I'll have to tag Sam in this and see if he actually pays attention. I love you, Sammy.
Am I supposed to know who Sam is?
No, you probably don't, but we'll introduce you at some point.
Okay.
Awesome. Michelle, this has been fantastic. So obviously everybody knows you. We already talked about what you're going to share. I want to say before I let you tell them how they can find you, I do want to say something to those of you out there that want to gain a larger influence. I can tell my story, but I'm not going to, but that's, Michelle's following exactly what I did. And it's not rocket science, but anybody who's trying to grow their influence, and I'm not necessarily saying you're trying to sell coaching like Michelle is, but you're just trying to become the realtor in your local community, the one everybody thinks about. Come from contribution, bring value, and do it consistently, and do that over a period of time, and watch your authority status grow. And I know very few of you will actually probably take this and run with it. Michelle has. We stumbled upon each other on the podcast. We got to know each other. I gave her that advice, and guess what she did with it? She's running with it, and she's making a name for herself, and she's going to continue to do it because she gets it. And we appreciate you, Michelle. So how can our audience, how can people get a hold of you? I mean, if they want the ninja themselves to teach them, what do they do?
So the easiest way, honestly, every time I tell anybody, is to find me on Instagram and send me a DM. I'm very, very, very fast at responding to them, to the detriment of my husband, I think, sometimes. But it's okay. He loves me anyway. But send me a DM, Berman Media Social on Instagram. On Clubhouse, it's just Michelle Berman now. So it's just my first and last name. Berman Media Social was taken. Rude. That's me.
Wow,
But I'm going to yell at Clubhouse for that. Like, there's only one of me. But on Clubhouse, Michelle Berman, and then on Instagram, Berman Media Social. But we have some really awesome things happening in 2021. Totally revamped our product suite, if you will, for what we're doing. The course itself is the Instagram Power Method. And I just, like Jeff said, my ultimate goal every single day is to wake up and change and move somebody's needle that day, even if it's one person. And in 2020, we helped over 1,000 realtors and loan officers combined between our coaching and our course. We have 300 VIP students. It's unbelievable what we've been able to do. And my goal, like I said, is any client, any student, anybody we work with, if you're not successful, that's on my back, and I carry it very heavily, to the point where until we get you to where you need to be, like, I'm just not going to let you go. Like, I'm going to be as accountable. I'm going to be that accountability person to say, like, hey, like, you want this, this is your goal, we're going to do it. And I'm going to give you the homework to make sure that you can make it happen.
I love it, man. I love it. So awesome. Tristan, thanks for being a pretty face in the background today, man. We've enjoyed.
Dude, my speakers are, something's going on.
It's all good, man.
Thank you so much. This will be like the one of many that we have you on.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you both. I think we have a really awesome year ahead of us, and for everybody listening, go do your homework.
One more thing I want to point out to you too. She is Michelle. What is it? Michael on Facebook. So if you're ever confused, like you try to tag her and you can't find her on Facebook only, it's Michelle, Michael. I struggled with this in the beginning too. And I was like, you're not on Facebook. How in the hell is that? And then she's like, no, you're an idiot. And so
I did not say that.
Well, I said it to myself.
But yeah, I saw Michael on Facebook.
I was thinking it.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to make him feel bad. I wanted him to feel good about himself.
I love it. Okay, guys. So next week we're going to be back Monday at the same time. That's 1:30 Pacific, 3:30 Central. And we just decided while we were on this call, we are going to do a Clubhouse webinar. We're going to go deep on Clubhouse. We're going to tell you guys how to use it for those of you that are struggling. And we're going to talk more about it with a couple people that are using it at a very high level. Michelle will definitely be back. And then we're just going to carry on this path. So thank you guys for being on today, Michelle. Thank you once again. And we'll see you soon.